Set up. Let me check whether we are live. It still says it's waiting. No, we are live. We are live. So, hi Uri, welcome to our webinar.
Good to see you again.
So finally, this evening is the evening for the show. So thank you very much for joining me today or preparing and delivering this presentation for our attendees and followers. By the way, all who's watching us, please follow us, like us, and provide some comments and questions if you have any. So we will then at the end go through them and respond or discuss them. So if you have any questions, please use the chat. And as they would say in native English, without any further ado, or how they would say, I would like to welcome and introduce Juraj on the stage, on this virtual stage, and ask him to introduce himself and share some cool stuff with us.
Okay, Marcel, thanks for having me, and hello to you, and hello also to everyone who is joining live. Yeah, it's pretty exciting evening for me as well. We said in the invitation message that we have unfinished business together from your workshop about AI agents on the Sena Fest. And thanks for giving me more space to to share what we have been trying here on our side. Um, I I will probably say a little bit about me because we also said that I'm a farmer and an SQL engineer, and so that people don't think that we are already so desperate that you need to be inviting farmers as guest speakers. And so let's put it straight. Uh, I was 10 years at Microsoft as an SDET, mostly working on testing APIs, .NET Framework, in the domain of language-sensitive sorting, Unicode encodings, stuff like that. And after that, I was doing a lot of different things because my oldest son had autism, and I somehow needed to fight it through with him. So it was a bit of time before I returned back to IT and business. And for the past 5 years, I've been back and working in a Czech company, AdHouse. I will have a slide on that where I can explain a bit. And currently I'm working as a test lead, leading a small team in our SQL organization, doing mostly, other than people management, doing technical stuff, which I really enjoy. Prototyping automation solutions, playing with stuff like AI, for example, and which is also why I'm here. So maybe we can jump right into it so we don't lose too much time. So let me share my screen and let's start with the presentation. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen and the presentation. Here's the picture from the workshop, just for a quick.
I remember.
You don't remember. And as I promised, just a little bit about us. Here at the house, we work on software solutions for science and technology. So mostly industrial use cases in electron microscopy, semiconductor manufacturing, precision engineering, things like this. On the SQA side, that has some interesting implications for us, that we oftentimes test software that talks to some hardware, be it valves, pumps, cameras, other things. We also often use virtual environments and simulators and test benches, because you can imagine that some of the equipment is pretty expensive and sensitive. And so it's better to do the early phases of testing in virtual environments. From the automation perspective, it's really a mixture of backend and front end, a lot of different technologies based on the client and project that we work on. And we also do a lot of endurance testing and monitoring, because usually the requirements on our software are pretty high in terms of for how long it is expected to run without any problems. What you see on the right-hand side is just a a quick example, and actually one of the use cases that inspired me a bit to start playing more with AI and using it. What you see there is a wafer from a semiconductor factory, and what you see there are thin sections, what we call lamella, very thin sections cut out from the wafer and welded on a special grid that goes into an electron microscope that actually measures the pattern that is engraved on the wafer, which is a basis for the transistor gates, etc. And all of these processes in the factory fully automated. There are like robotic arms and overhead transport systems and a lot of software around it. And since we are building some of the services that accompany the product as it goes through the manufacturing process, we actually needed to some interesting use cases and testing there, and that's how I started with AI. Now back actually to the main topic of this webinar or presentation, and as we said in the invitation, this will be mostly about MCP, Model Context Protocol. Marcel told me that there will be, probably different kinds of people in the audience. Maybe some of you haven't heard MCP term yet, and maybe on the other side there are people who are already much further than we are or I am in this area. So we will try to hit the middle ground here in this presentation. So please bear with us. So just for those people who are new to this, just a very quick one slide about MCP, what it is. Model Context Protocol is a standard protocol for how you can connect AI applications to external systems. And this can be connecting to the application either to files, databases, so some data sources, or it can be connecting it to different tools that can do interesting actions, like for example, search the web, or do a git pull request, or do all sorts of other things. On the architecture side, you will often hear in this presentation the terms MCP host, client, and server. So there is a picture on the right-hand side that kind of shows the overview. So you have your AI-powered application. It can be, in our case, it will be the Copilot in Visual Studio Code, where you have your large language model agent, and to be able to use some of those external data sources or tools, there are three parts that take action. One is the MCP client. There is always one MCP client per the MCP server, which is on the other side. They talk over MCP protocol, and it's the MCP server that knows the details of how to do things, for example, with the local files, or to access Google Drive, or connect to some sort of database. Before this was around, you had just custom interfaces depending on what you wanted to do. What MCP made really possible is to standardize how the AI-powered application talks to external sources, and you can now integrate those much more easily into your workflow, and you can have them actually even talk together and stuff like that. On the more deep layer, there's transport layer and there's data layer. And so somewhere deep down, there's a JSON RPC based protocol that sends messages. You can see an example of that message on the right hand side. The protocol is state based. There's a certain life cycle. It negotiates capabilities of the server, etc. The server exposes certain primitives. The main ones we'll talk about is tools, resources, and prompts. And on the transport layer, the AI-powered application can talk to the MCP server either through standard input-output or through streamable HTTP or server-side events. So that's it for a quick intro. Hopefully I didn't lose anyone. Now, the other thing we will be doing, we will be building a few MCPs today. We'll be building 2 MCPs. So again, just a quick overview of what is available out there for those of you who haven't worked with this yet. Of course, there's SDK for different languages that you can use. We will be showing examples today of using FastMCP, which is a Python framework for building MCP servers and applications. It's pretty cool because it handles all of the protocol details. You don't have to worry about it. It has simple high-level interface where you pretty much just do decorators of your Python functions, and that way you expose the so-called tool to your AI-powered application. The other example, we will be using MCP GraphQL Forge project from GitHub. This is a small project, but actually pretty cool that through which you can encapsulate GraphQL queries as modular tools. Those tools are defined just in YAML files, so no need to code there actually. The MCP server itself is written in Go, and yeah, this just another example that actually these days it's already pretty quick to build some of these MCP tools. Now the 2 examples or 2 sample applications I will be using to demo or showcase the MCPs. One will be MCP for Docker. It will use the REST API that is available in Docker. Obviously, there's already official Docker MCP, but my goal was to show how something like this can be done on REST API, and Docker was a pretty nice sample application that everybody knows. So I'll be using the API to do things around containers, images, networks. On the right-hand side, you can see one of the REST endpoints where you can list all containers. And so we will be connecting onto these endpoints and make the data from them available in Copilot to work with. The other sample application that I will use, and this one has GraphQL API, is Wiki.js. For those of you, I guess most of you already encountered GraphQL. For those of you who not, you can think of it as a more modern REST API. Instead of having different HTTP methods mapped to your CRUD operations, there's just single endpoint. You do post requests. Clients specify exactly what data they need through queries and mutations. So this avoids the problem of over or under fetching, where you have either too little or too much data. And something that you typically get with a REST API. Another interesting advantage is that the schema that you have can evolve without breaking clients. So versioning is a bit better with GraphQL. Wiki.js is an open source wiki software. Again, I chose application that probably everybody will be familiar with, so I don't have to explain too much about it. And I will be using the GraphQL API more specifically for managing users to showcase how MCP server connecting through such API can be created. Okay, here is just an example of how that interface looks like on the API side. And now it's demo time. We actually discussed this with Marcel and decided that, okay, let's probably do demo upfront, and then I'll return back to the slides and explain some of the technical details. We promise that this will be a bit more technical, not just talking and showing, but we don't want to miss the demo. So let's do the demo first. Let's see what we can do with the MCP servers, and then let's dive into some of the details as a follow-up. So I will keep sharing my screen. Now I will try to make this a bit bigger. Hopefully you can see it on your screen well enough. Marcel, you feel free to let me know if I need to increase the font size a bit more.
I'm a bit blind, so But I think it's okay for me. So hopefully everyone else could read that as well.
Okay, I can do it a bit bigger, but this will be probably already, yeah. Let's try to run with this and see. Maybe I can make it less if there's not enough space on the screen. So let me bring up the demo scenario here on the side, so I don't forget anything. So where we are right now, we are in Visual Studio Code. Those of you who work with it, and it will be very familiar. On the right-hand side, I have my chat window. On the left-hand side, I see the files in my project, and in the middle I see the editor. And the file that I opened here, just to start with, is an MCP JSON file, which is a workspace file in Visual Studio that can be used to actually manage and describe the MCP tools that you work with. So right now you see that I have several tools here, several MCP servers, I should say. One is the MCP GraphQL wiki. So this will be the MCP server connecting to the GraphQL API of the wiki application. And as you see, I have it here another time just to showcase, okay, there are two transport mechanisms possible. This one will be using the server-side event. This one will be using the standard input-output. Both are deployed as Docker containers and run on a wiki network where also the wiki.js is located, so they can talk together. And then I have another MCP server here, which is for the REST API connecting to Docker. And as you see, this one is actually written in Python. This one is based on the fast MCP. It's not running in container. It will be running just in a local process. We will get back to this later in the presentation, so I won't explain the structure in much detail right now. But the one thing that I want to do, let me start the MCP for Docker, and I will now just go into the tool configuration where I can take a quick look. Okay, so let me show what kind of tools this MCP server exposes, and I can see now that I have now here several tools for creating container, creating network, things like that, listing containers. Okay, so I can probably now, I'm in agent mode here, which means that I can use all of the MCP servers that are currently available and running. So let me start probably with just a simple prompt. Show me a list of all containers, and hopefully Copilot will understand. Okay, and you can see that it understood and it identified a list Docker containers tool, and it called it to show me the running containers. It also showed some information about them. Now this box here means that MCP tool was executed to get some results. If I expand it, I can see exactly the input and output that was sent. And you can see now that it used this parameter because, as we will see later in the code, you can list either all containers, including the stopped ones, you pass through here, or if you want to see just the running ones, you pass false. And here we see the JSON output from the API that was sent back to Copilot to get data from. And this is already the work of Copilot, giving us information in a readable form from the result. As I said, there are 3 basic primitives every server can expose. So we saw now one of the tools in action. There are now also prompts and resources. So to showcase what prompt might look like, and this might be also useful for, let's say you are a newcomer to a MCP server and you don't really know what you can do with it. So as a creator of the MCP server, you can expose some curated or prepared prompts for the user to use. And in Copilot, you get to those by doing /MCP. And I can already see here that I have, for the Docker MCP, I have create interactive container here. And this will create, hopefully, an interactive container. I can just click it. Now you can see in the top of the screen, it's asking me for an image name. So apparently there's a parameter or argument that the prompt needs to be able to do what it wants to do. And for this purpose, I prepared just a simple mini Alpine shell container to play with. So I say, okay, this is my image. And this image is pretty much as a small Linux image with some tools and starting a shell. And obviously that needs to run in interactive mode, so I can connect to the shell and do some stuff. So let me type in the name. And now what you will see will happen that actually what I got from the MCP server is a full prompt where the argument that I just passed in was supplied here. Okay, and now what it's telling the MCP server, okay, please create a new interactive Docker container using the following specification. Here's the specification. Here are steps to execute. So we see that it should first check if the image is actually available, and then if it is, it should create a container and give me back ID and name. And now all I need to do is just say, okay, send this out. Okay, and as you can see, first it checked if the image is available, and then it started the container. We can check that I should have a Docker extension here. So we can check here that the container is actually running, and indeed we can see it here. It has been created. It is stopped right now. It's not running because that's what the tool does, the create container tool. It creates and stops container, and then you have to use another tool to start the container if you want to. But this probably or hopefully shows how those prompts can be created, prompts can be passed from MCP server to your users, and that way maybe help them see, okay, so this is how you can use the MCP server. I can do even these kinds of more complex queries. Okay, another example from this, I have prepared another one, and I will include also resources in this next step. So there's a prepared prompt here that will actually create a default test environment for me. So imagine that mini Alpine shell image, whatever, that's I have some kind of test environment where I want to run multiple of these images in certain configurations. Some will be stopped, some will be running, some maybe go to this network or that network. So here is a simple prompt that will actually tell the MCP server, okay, first again check that the image is there, and then please create 4 containers based on the mini Alpine shell image, and keep 2 containers stopped and start the other 2 containers, just in human language like this. Now, maybe you noticed before that the container that was created, so that name stays unique, is used just number suffix. So it has been called just mini Alpine shell -1. And I wanted to make this because I will be creating now 4 containers, so they will be called just 1, 2, 3, 4. That, from what I know already about Marcel, that's not enough fun for him, and he would like definitely to more interesting names for the containers that will be created. And so I created a resource in this MCP server that actually does something more fun with the container names. And I will now put it into context. So here you can see the add context. And there's MCP resources. And now I have here container naming pattern. I call it internally emotional animals. So each container should be called as an emotional animal. Another way how to actually go through the resources, you can also go to this extension tab here, and for the rest Docker, and here I can do browse resources. Okay, and I see that this resource is exposed, and here I see how actually that resource is defined. And you see, so this resource just is giving instructions on, what adjectives can be used for the emotions, what animals can be used for the nouns, and then just gives usage guidelines of how to do it. We don't have to require user to write this, so now I can just go here and okay, I use this, and I can just provide here additional instruction. Please follow the attached naming convention. And let's see what happens. And you see that the description that we had before was attached to the context of this prompt. And you can already see, okay, understood that we will use the animal naming convention to create the containers. And it started 2 containers and kept the other one stopped. And now it will show us just a quick table of what was created because it was part of the prompt. So as you can see, we have now Swift Eagle, Happy Dolphin, Calm Panda, and Clever Fox. 2 of them are running, and 2 of them are stopped. Okay, so right now I'm happy with this demo. So I'll just say remove containers. Because now I already got the idea from the prepared prompts that I can talk pretty much freely now and have certain stuff done. And so now, okay, it's telling me that all those have been removed, including the mini alpine shell one that I had before. Now I will move on. This is the first part of the demo. Hopefully you got the idea of some of the differences between tools, prompts, resources. I internally understand the difference that tools is usually something that we expect Copilot or agent to use and decide, okay, I want to use this now and use it automatically. For prompts and resources, there's usually something that's user-facing. You as a user decide, okay, I want to use this prepared prompt, and I want to use this kind of resource to go with it to do something interesting. Now what I will do to show a bit more complex scenario, I will now, you see that I am now in general agent mode. But what I have prepared in this environment, I have 3 different agents prepared for this environment, and I will now switch to the test environment agent to show a closer scenario to what we might be doing in terms of testing the test environment that we use. As I mentioned, we use a lot of virtualization, so we want to make sure that the environment is as we expected. Now, what happens when I'm in this test environment mode? The Copilot now has a different role than it had before, and I can try to confirm it. And you see that it currently what it did, it read the system prompt, and it tells me, okay, I'm now a specialized test environment monitor and manager, and this is what I know about your environment. And now Copilot in this mode has a lot more context about my environment, and so I can use some more complex queries. And I prepared our prompts. I prepared one where I'm telling the Copilot, please perform a quick health check of Wiki.js and MCP GraphQL testing environment. And I'm not giving here much detail because a lot of the details are included in the system prompt. And I can do different kinds of prompts on what should be verified or changed or managed in the environment. And as you see, since this has the standard extension of .prompt.md, there is this helpful play icon in Visual Studio Code where I can say, okay, run this prompt in current chat environment. So now I'm running a more structured, longer prompt in an agent mode. And you can see that based on the instructions, it already knows, okay, I have the MCP server that I can use to inspect the configuration of the system. And based on the information that it had, it expected that there should be actually 4 containers running together. There is one that is the Wiki.js service. Then there is the Postgres database that the Wiki is using. And then I should have 2 MCP containers running, one for server-side events and one with the standard input-output channel. And it determines, okay, so this three are running, this one is not running. It gives me the overall status, shows the summary table, and lets me now decide what to do next. Let's say I didn't start the wiki standard input-output container, so I'm fine with that. But let me check if the Wiki.js service is running correctly, if there are no errors in the logs. Please check the logs of Wiki.js container to make sure there are no errors. Okay, and again we can see that the agent pretty much knows very well what to do. And here we can see what it executed. You can notice that I can, just use Wiki.js. I don't want to be very strict about, okay, so this is the exact name of the container. The agent already knows based on the context and what it's already processed before. And now I get again a pretty readable summary of the logs of the container, and I see, okay, there are no problems here. Okay, this was the second part of the demo. If everybody is fine with it, I can move on to the third part, and we will look at the Wiki MCP and do some stuff with it. I will now switch back to the general agent mode. So I have the MCP available, and I should have Wiki.js here running. So right now I'm just, okay, so this is the front end of the Wiki.js service. I'm now in the administrator dashboard. I'm looking at the list of users. As I mentioned, we're just working with the users for the purpose of this demo. There are currently 2 users in Wiki. So let me check if actually the MCP server can see the same. Show me a list of Wiki.js users, please. Okay, so we can see that it's properly identified that, okay, I have MCP server that I can use for that, and it was able to retrieve the information through the API and give me the result. Maybe one thing that I skipped a bit over, you can now see that the MCP server is running. I didn't start it explicitly before I ran the query because the environment, I have a setting here said, okay, if the MCP server is not running automatically. That helps a bit. And also what helps is that this is an MCP server talking over server-side event that was started separately through Docker Compose. And as you see, the instructions for Visual Studio Code are pretty simple. This is the endpoint. It's this type of MCP server, so just connect to it when I run it. No other things are needed. And okay, and maybe another quick check, let me create a user and pay a tribute again to the workshop that Marcel had, and was really fun. And I will say create user Santa Claus with email Santa. No,
Great idea.
great idea, right? Okay, and again, we can see the proper tool was identified. Here what we can see is that it was now a mutation that was passed to the API post endpoint, and this is the output that we got. User created successfully. We can check now in the front end to make sure that we see the same thing. Okay, and indeed, Santa Claus is now here.
Ooh, wow.
Okay. I will say, okay, remove Santa Claus now. One thing that I want to show on this, hopefully this won't remove Santa for all of the world just from the database. I don't want to cause a lot of disruption with this demo.
I have one question about these deletion tools in general, but we'll discuss later.
Okay, one thing that I wanted to showcase with this, you see that actually the delete user tool takes an ID, not a name. But I asked Copilot just, remove Santa Claus as a user. And it knew, okay, I need to figure out the ID. Sometimes it knows from the context. When it doesn't know, we can see that it ran get all users query to get actually the names with the IDs, so it knows what ID to pass to the delete user mutation to delete the user. Okay, I think this closes the third part. Now I will want to show probably the most complex or most advanced example of how this can be used, and I will switch now the Copilot to a test runner mode. Again, I will confirm. I'm doing this for two reasons. One is just to give you an idea. Okay, I'm now switching to a different agent, and there's a system prompt at work in the background. In theory, I shouldn't be needed to do this. I can just switch the agent mode here. But there are some caching issues that I noticed in Visual Studio Code that already happened to me once or twice. That even though I switched the agent mode here, the environment still thought it was in another mode, and so this will just, that's the other reason, this will just make sure, okay, I'm really in this other mode now. And before I showcase this, I want to show as an example of what's happening there, or what I will be doing now. I will be now using a more structured query or prompt to do some testing of the user API interface in Wiki.js. And this is not structured as a typical prompt MD, so it's not Markdown, as you will notice. It's in YAML. It was an experimentation for some of the more structured behaviors that I need to get from the system. Will YAML be better or worse than Markdown? It turned out to be pretty well for these scenarios. So what you can see here is it's structured, but still human readable, and it's natural language. And this defines certain test cases we are used to from other tools like Robot Framework or others, where I have name of the test, I have the description of what it's doing, so I will be testing all of the CRUD operations on the user entity in Wiki.js. I have now here a link to where the user data is stored. If I open it, you can see that I will be using with 2 users. I could obviously have one more properties here, but for the demo, okay, imagine that I use just the name and email, and I will be updating the email of the user. So that's the third one. And here I have now setup action. So that's the setup and teardown as we are used to. So would I expect the environment to be in when I'm starting the test, and then I want to clean up at the end, and so this teardown. So I'm telling here, okay, so action is this is the check, and make sure that there are just 2 users when we start, the 2 that we expect. And then I have few groups of test cases here that are in the usual pattern that you would see in, we would use in TestRail or any other test case management system that you have. I do an action, there's an expected result, and I do another action, there's another expected result. And so as a part of this test case, I will be creating the 2 users. I'm referring here to the test data that I have stored in the YAML file that I just shown before. And I will be checking that the users have been created successfully. I will be checking that when I list all users, that not only I can search for those users specifically, but even when I get all users, that those users would be there. So you can already see some, the testing mind racing of what are all the cases that could be wrong, and making a bit more uh, interesting list of test cases. Then I will modify one of the users, change the email. I will then search for the user, make sure that the email was updated, and then at the end I will delete the users and tear down actions at the end. So this is already something that could be understood to be a more complete test for a certain endpoint. And what you will see here, there's no code here. This is just human description. So we will be obviously using MCP server to run these actions, and using the agent to test the expected results. When I show the system prompt quickly, this one is a bit more complex, and it describes, okay, this is your role, and you see that this consists of 3 other system prompts, but these are again just YAML files that describe, for example, I show one of them, some terms, examples, and what can be done with those things. And so pretty much these YAML files define the test specification execution framework, where I exactly define what is test case, what is default state, what is group of steps, what are test case steps, and then there are actions that can be done with these. There's some YAML-based examples in the system prompt as well, so it's very clear as to how this will be used, and example of the test data. I won't go over this in detail because we'll be spending a lot of time on this. Just wanted to give you a quick peek on what's behind of this more complex prompt. And now I have this user script CRUD prompt that I want to run in the system. So let me try now to run it with the test runner agent and see what happens. Okay, so you can see that it's already now loading the user's data, and we'll start executing the test. And so we can already see that it's following the established pattern and terminology. It's going through the different steps, creating the users, now searching for the user. This is now going all autonomously, so I don't need to touch it anymore. Now it's modifying the user, checking that the email was changed, and now deleting the users. Okay, and now you can see one part of the structure prompt is that it should also generate a test report. So now we will generate a test report in Markdown in this test results folder that I can take a look on and see exactly. As a tester, I would then typically, of course, go to the log file, right, and check that what I expected will happen indeed actually happened. Okay, I got a summary. I can now open this. And when I expand the individual groups, I can now see the actions that were happening, the MCP server that was used, the inputs that went in, the exact raw output that was out there, and the result of the verification and summary at the end. Okay, we are already running, I believe, tight. It's 18:45. I had one more thing that I wanted to show, but maybe if there will be interest, we can return back to it later. But one of the things that I'm really excited about when using now this environment and agent is what I call project memory or project-specific context. That really helps with the productivity and other things. But maybe it will be better now because I think we have seen quite a lot. So let's probably share some technical details, and then maybe feel free to write into chat if you want to, do a bit more demoing, or you want to rather go into the details. Any take from you, Marcel?
Yes, that's great what I saw until now, and I want to see more. So definitely, I would like to add the last piece there,
Really?
but maybe just clean up, but process some questions. There was one interesting, someone mentioned in a chat that you made some typo during the removal of the user. And the comment was that it would be interesting to see whether how that works. If there is a maybe bigger mistake in the prompt, whether that would remove some other user. I think you mistyped the Santa Claus somehow, but I think then you explained that with the ID,
Mm-hmm.
and
Uh,
actually the guy is commenting now that he wanna see or she wanna see more as well. So yeah, that was one of the comment. But I have also some questions for you,
mm-hmm.
uh, and I will keep few for the end. But maybe you mentioned these primitives, and you mentioned tools, prompts, and resources. Did
Mm-hmm.
I get it right?
Yep, you got
And
it.
then I got lost a bit. What's the difference between prompts and resources? Is there any difference? Because it looks like it's still kind of prompt.
Uh, yeah, it's kind of similar. The based on the usage in Copilot is so that there is some difference where resource would be something that you don't necessarily have to look at or do some changes to. It's something that is more static. So the naming convention, it's something that probably won't change much. And if it will change, it will change on the side of the MCP server definition. And so, and I don't, yeah, I already know, okay, it's emotional animals. So I just want to use that resource and I don't need to do any changes in it. Whereas the prompt is something that you see in your chat window immediately, and you can do some small changes to it if you need to. And as you saw, I brought up the prompt for creating those 4 containers, and I just put small addition at the end. Please use the naming convention from the attached resource instead of
So
the number suffix.
if I understood it correctly, then resources might be also any files. So for instance, if I have some CSV files with my data or anything else, like maybe images, I can
Yeah.
bring them via resources in.
Yeah, because
Okay.
that's something that you don't necessarily need to see in your chat window, but you just need to bring it into context. Whereas the prompt is something that you most probably want to see and maybe adjust a bit if you need to.
Okay, and then I didn't get whether these two MCPs you mentioned, this Docker and Wiki.js, were built by you, or is it some existing tool you
No,
used?
this was built by me, so the for the purpose of this webinar and the presentation. So I mean, the rest of the slides that I have prepared pretty much, go over some of the details of how these things were implemented. Uh, and because we would already have the context, okay, so this is how it is used, this is what it can do, and maybe the follow-up question was, okay, so how could I create something like this? How does the deployment to Docker container work? How it can be done? Things like that.
Okay. And I have maybe two more, three more, like low-level technical questions, and I will leave the rest for the end of the end of the webinar. Uh, One is I noticed that you allow all the tools to be automatically triggered. Isn't it a bit dangerous for, especially
Uh,
for the delete functions?
yeah, good question. So there are some annotations that you can make to the tools.
Uh-huh.
So you can let Copilot or agent know that actually this is destructive operation. You check with your user whether the user is sure that you want to do this. Obviously, if this is part of an automated testing workflow, as I showed the last one, I mean, what's the purpose of doing an unattended test run if you need to, confirm every delete operation? But for exploratory scenarios, that's definitely a good option to have this turned on, and you didn't get to see it in this environment because I was playing with this earlier today. But the first time you use the tool in your environment, you get a prompt from your Copilot asking you, okay, I am gonna run this. Do you want to allow this just this time in this session or in this workspace? So we have three options of as a user you can decide how safely you feel with allowing your agent to just run this without any other check.
Actually, I'm using this, as some people would say, in this or with this vibe coding approach as well. But what happened to me in the past, like last couple of days, I don't know whether this week or last week, I'm using Cursor, not VS Code, but I allow Cursor to touch even my environment file, and it removes all my credentials. It just
Mhm.
remove it, and then I need to regenerate everything, and it was pretty annoying for me. So for the deletion and maybe for some specific files, it would be nice to not allow the tool.
Yeah,
When I noticed it, it was this deleting the containers. Sometimes it might be pretty dangerous that it will touch some container you don't want to really delete. And if you allow this tool to do it autonomously, it might be super convenient until it will remove some important container you didn't have a
yeah.
backup yet or you are working on. So that was just maybe something what I noticed there.
Okay.
And
One thing
then
I can
I
show
just,
to just add
yeah.
to your concerns or this topic is that I'm using the custom chat modes, and
Uh-huh,
as I was going through, and those represent for me the different agents. And this is another way where I can limit what tools I make available to the agent, and that way
uh-huh,
limit some unwanted consequences. So, for example, I had oftentimes problem with the agent trying to, instead of using the MCP tool, trying to do it with a terminal command.
uh-huh,
And even though I in the structured program I explained, please don't use terminal commands, that didn't always work. And but what Visual Studio Code, this feature that it has is pretty cool because for example, the test environment monitoring and management agent that I have here, I can
uh-huh,
say, okay, you are allowed to use just these tools
uh-huh,
out of all of the ones that I have available in Visual Studio Code. And that way make sure that I'm okay that we will be using these, but nothing else, because otherwise there are like right now probably 125 tools
uh-huh.
in my environment, but you see that for the agent mode I use just few. Um, because there's
Okay.
another catch with having too many tools available in your system. For example, Visual Studio Code has currently breaking point around 128 tools. If you get
Mm-hmm.
more than that, then it may happen that even though your MCP server is running, everything is connected as it should, the Copilot just doesn't see it. And it's very non-obvious because you have just a small yellow warning in your chat window that you are having more than 128 tools, and some of them might not be visible to the agent at this point. And there is an internal mechanism that actually Visual Studio Code knows about. So you can even in your prompt ask it, okay, enable these tools. But if you don't know about it, you are just lost and thinking,
Yeah.
okay,
I
very
remember, actually, I'm visiting today LangChain. They have a big event, and I remember when I read their documentation, or I don't know whether it was documentation or some webinar, but they mentioned that the number of tools should be as small as possible. Otherwise, the agents will get lost with that. And I heard the number 5 to 8, so I'm a bit surprised that if you are talking about 120, probably the LLM models are these days better than it was in the past. But my early stage or early time when I start building first agents, I remember these 5 to 8 tools, and I was also trying to push other colleagues to use as little tools as possible, and we try
Mhm.
to always simplify all the processes and build the small, tiny agents that they don't need to have so many tools, and then we chain the agents
Mhm.
rather than building some like one super generic with many tools. But then interesting to see this how you setting it up in VS Code. And I'll stay with VS Code because I have a few more, and then we will move on. You had there multiple different things like system prompts and user prompts and all the other structures in, I think it was in .vs Code folder, and I would wonder whether this is something like a standard structure or guideline from Microsoft, or you design it yourself. Aha, it's outside, right? It's
Outside.
outside of
So let me just put it back so
make
you can
it.
see what is the structure like. So you can see that in VS Code actually there's just recommended
I see.
extensions and TP-JSON and project settings. So this is just settings for the workspace. And then I have the system prompts here separately. But what is pointing to the system prompts is these chat modes here, right? So you can see that I didn't put the system prompt description. I could put it here into the chat mode, but for organization purposes, I thought it was better to have all the system prompts in one place,
Mm-hmm.
and where I can easily see what I have and add more and have the chat mode definition just to reference that system prompt, like I do
That's
in this particular case. So this was just
okay.
yeah. I haven't heard about this from elsewhere how to do it. And then I wanted to separate the system prompts from test prompts, because test prompt is already something that builds on top of the system prompt for a specific
Uh-huh.
use case. And system prompts are useful because a lot of the information that you would have to repeat in your test prompts,
Mm-hmm.
you can put into the system prompt, and then your user prompt can already stay pretty compact, and while still being able to reference a lot of specific information. And then you can have all your related test prompts together, and just makes it for kind of logical organization of things, and it seems to be working.
Cool, cool. I think now it's clear, but I was a bit surprised because I studied these structures in the past, and I didn't notice that this would be in the Microsoft doc. So I was curious how this works. But so that's your design and your kind of structuring of the project. And then I also noticed that you use the YAML file. In the past I was trying to use that as well, but for me it was a bit messy. Or I don't know exactly how to explain that, but I didn't like that approach. How it worked for you? Are you following some guidelines there? Is there any standard how it should be structured? Because I had something there, but I didn't like it. So what could you maybe
Yeah.
just give us some more details about this?
This comes from some early experiments where originally I was writing all of the prompts in Markdown. But my early versions, for example, of the test runner, uh, but it might have been because of other things as well, not just the format that was used. But as I was trying to kind of come down to what's causing some of the irregularities or hallucinations or whatnot in the agent output. One of the ideas was, okay, let me maybe try something more structured.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Markdown is pretty structured, but I thought, okay, YAML is more strict, but it's still, uh, you know, pretty easy to edit, create by hand, by
Mm-hmm.
command. And I use YAML files a lot in automation, especially for data that needs to be prepared by hand, because doing it in JSON, it's just too much syntax around the values and stuff, whereas in YAML you are pretty quickly done. And so I had this idea and did some comparisons. And for me, it looked like I was getting more consistent results with YAML for something like this. So I try to also define the test execution framework. So what is test case? What is a test run? How to do it? What are the procedures? Try to define it in YAML. I thought, okay, that's a one-time thing that I will be just reusing from here on. And I was curious as to how consistent it will be when I try to execute a test prompt based on such large system prompt that has three parts and a lot of different descriptions, and it turned out to work pretty well. I was looking on the internet on, there were some discussions about what to use for the structured prompts in terms of format, and there were some people who experimented with YAML as well. I didn't find any conclusive evidence as to what is better or what are disadvantages and advantages. To me, I understand your point. YAML, when I open it in the editor, it looks a bit more messy than MD, especially if you have long lines, and also the editor
Yeah,
now
that
is
was
doing
one of
a better job of in VS Code to show the MD in always readable form, even when you have long lines and stuff like that.
yeah. Just two ideas to this topic, and then let's move on to the last part. I don't know whether you want to, but we would like to see that. The idea when I saw these YAML files was that there is one test automation tool for mobile test automation, and I don't remember Maestro. I think it's called Maestro, and they use the YAML files to define all the tests and everything, and they have some rules. So I felt like if these YAML files would have the rules, how to structure them, that it might maybe help me to work with that. But I didn't have that, and maybe that was one of the thing. And the second one was the formatting, as you mentioned. Sometimes I had a long string,
Mhm.
and it was too long, and I couldn't easily handle it in VS Code. Maybe that was just matter of setup, but still I was a bit struggling with that. And there is one more for the web app, and I think it's developed surprisingly by Tesco, like the Tesco, the grocery supermarkets. They have their own test automation tool, and I met some guys who are using it, and they also using YAML files for the definitions. So that's interesting. I will probably give a second chance to these YAML files. And then when I saw this, it also one more idea pops up, because if this would work, then it should work with Gherkin as well. So like these BDD styles, and I guess that there are certain what I was missing in YAML files. There are the rules, there are some patterns, there are some good practices. People probably already find a way how to design well-structured and good like BDD files or Gherkin files with all these given when then. So maybe that would be the way how to structure better tests. Even these preconditions and some data structures like data-driven testing is there, and there are certain methodologies around. So maybe that would help people to structure the high-quality tests in some not so heavily structured but still structured data or text. So maybe that would be how to say that, good to try or
Mhm.
worth to consider. Just the idea. And let's move on to the last demo because we are overrunning a bit, and I feel or I think we might lose some people who have dedicated just 1 hour for this, but it's super interesting for me. So let's move on.
Okay, so the choice was then to continue with the demo, right? Wrap it up, even
Yeah,
even the time for
yeah,
the stuff.
yeah. I would continue with demo, and then I have a few more questions for you still.
Okay, okay. So for the last part of the demo, I will now switch to the third agent that I have prepared for this environment, and it's what I call project context. And again, I will confirm. I will start explaining what is project context for me. My job currently is such that I work on a lot of different projects, and I often switch projects here and there. I work, I don't know, 2 weeks on one, then I switch to something else, and it takes probably a few weeks before I return to the first one. And I often had a lot of troubles to, with spending too much time on context switching, where I was, what was happening, to just, make sure that when you get back to something, you are productive. Another use case might be you have a newcomer on the team and the project has been developed for a long time, and there is, we want to be very efficient in bringing a new person on board and share all the important details. And so I hate this use case. I was thinking about it for a long time, that I would like to have something very specific to the project, something that would augment just general generative AI, and be able to give me much more tailored and specific results. And so that's where this idea for, okay, let's have project specific context and do some prompts how this could work. And so I am now in that agent mode, and let's say I start with a simple query. I will say, based on the context, um, what is fast MCP used for in this project? Because right now I don't want just general information about what is fast MCP, but I really want to know what it is used for in this project. As you can see, it's already reading some files. They are partly generated, partly written. They are part of the context. This being maintained every time someone works on the project. And so now it tells me a very specific information about how fast MCP is used. And it's used for the Docker MCP. So I'm already getting here also some tailored results based on which I'm getting much more targeted answer than what I would get otherwise. Another thing or another use case is you sometimes get into a situation, remember that they were solving certain problem before and you just can't remember the details anymore. I remember that there was a recent change in how Wiki API token is handled. What was the problem and how did we solve it?
And where are these data taken from?
I will show it.
We are running out of tokens.
No, I'm taking just, it's good. It's good. 74%. We are doing fine. I want to do
Okay.
a final celebration in agent as well, and I would think, okay, that will cost me if I run out of the tokens.
Good.
But maybe I will start explaining, because not sure if it will there's a problem. We'll see if it processes this. But there is this context folder that is now part of all my projects that I work on, that I start creating from day one. And as I create something or work on something, I keep the chat open and I consult with ChatGPT. And I have this mode where I can say, okay, whatever we worked on, the milestones that we reached, what we discussed, please summarize that and store it in my context. Because I don't want to write this myself, right? I mean, that's just too time consuming. But the agent is very good at, okay, let me stop this and maybe try again.
Mm-hmm. So this is like you mimic basically the memory of ChatGPT. You
And this,
have, I don't know whether you know, there is also such a feature in ChatGPT, and sometimes, for instance, when I'm researching MCPs, sometimes it get lost. So I ask ChatGPT, please store when I'm referring to MCP, I mean Model Context Protocol, and I have it in my memory, and this is something similar, right?
yeah, this is something similar. And currently, It's not even in rec. I use just text format, just MD format to store the information, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
playing now with the idea. Okay, there is already too much information in the context, and this is not doing anything. So I will try then probably in another chat window. Uh, Keep and continue. Um, uh, so I'll expand it just to show it. So I'm doing just empty files right now. These are always
Mm-hmm.
created by the agent in my environment. I also asked the agent based on some original thinking. I may include some details in, for example, what the project is about, what technologies are used, and what they are used for. But sometimes I let just the agent, okay, just summarize me what this is used for, and I then just do a few more additions. And so this you can see that's pretty much a daily log, and that was also the idea. If I had a daily log, I could actually get to a lot of information that I wouldn't be able to get to otherwise.
So
Okay.
this is pretty interesting idea. I don't know whether you know this Claude MD or there is a agent.md type of idea or a feature. I think VS Code already adopted that. That there is a agent.md as a like entire context of the project, so the agents could always read them. So this is something similar, I feel, but you introduce it, or yeah, you invent something which probably other guys are working as well on, and
I
that's
am almost sure that someone is working on this.
yeah.
Uh,
I think there are two approaches. One is that every AI coding assistant or this agent building their own, and there is a one like generic idea. They call it agent.md. If you go to the website agent.md, I think it's the website. That's generic for any agent. I will just quickly check that whether I am right. Agent.md. Yeah, yeah,
okay, so
it's
the
there.
prompt now finally went through.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see that it actually found in the context the particular file that has information about what was the change. And it told me, okay, we had an insecure practice because we had the API token in just in our repository in a file, and it was deployed to the image, and then it was read from the file in the image by the container, which is not very secure. So we actually moved the token to an environment variable, and so I'm
Mm-hmm.
now
Mm-hmm.
getting specific
Cool.
information exactly was the change that was done.
Okay, and how this context is created? You need to always ask to.
Uh, Let me see. I can probably do a quick thing. We just had a public demonstration of our work that we did over the past 2 weeks. Let's celebrate. And I will ask now the agent to just store the context. Uh,
Mhm. So you need to always ask the agent to store it. It's not automatically stored
it's
like.
not automatic. I tried to put it into the context, but it also didn't always work automatically. And then I realized that also it's not something that I necessarily want, because
Mhm.
sometimes you need several iterations because certain idea flashes out, and you don't necessarily need all the steps that were taken, but at
Mhm.
certain points you want to save that into the context, and so I figure I realize that actually I like it more when I am the one who controls this, and I said
Mhm.
it's something.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of like more ideas are popping up. Like maybe I would like to have some summarization after each month, and maybe I just want to make sure that the credentials are not disclosed in these files, and a lot of other stuff. So I think definitely the idea has potential, and it would be nice if it could be somehow automatically handled by the VS Code, and I could just configure what should be stored or have some rules set up around that. That's pretty nice. What are you doing now?
Yeah, I just wanted to show you that, how I usually create these. So I
Uh-huh.
just kind of prompt,
Mhm.
but I think it's overloaded already. So it's
Yeah,
just,
and
but now
it
it's
looks also it also looked like you are running that different session in different chats, so I don't know whether we would get the entire summary. Are we getting the
we won't
summary?
get the entire summary because exactly as you mentioned, I switched to a different chat. So
Mm-hmm.
I expect now that it will do just, more general summary instead of including all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff we had before.
Yeah,
But now I can open it and
I see.
yeah. So this is
So,
pretty much how I usually do it, and
mm-hmm.
I can just go over the context and see if I want to remove anything, change anything. Sometimes I do a follow up prompt where I say, okay, so just don't include this, or phrase it in a more simple terms or more technical terms.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I make
So,
manual additions. Yeah.
wow, good. So let's move on now to the last discussion or last questions and discussion. I have a few which are
Shall I,
more
shall I stop
high.
sharing? You want just see us up close?
You maybe you can close the sharing or stop the sharing, and if you need that, we can go back there again.
Okay.
Uh, there was only this Santa question there. We covered this I call them low level topics, and I have a few bigger like conceptual maybe questions.
Mhm.
Uh, you show how you test the wiki JS using MCP, and you build the MCP. And my feeling was like, aha, okay, this is interesting, it's cool stuff, but now you are building extra layer, which might be a bit also distracting because there might be some bugs, no? If that would be, I understand the tooling
Yep.
and everything, the power of that, but if you bring this extra layer between your system under the test and your testing, actual testing, that's just extra layer, which might be
Yeah.
buggy as well. So,
Might be, and that's really because then you really need to think about where when you want to use this actually. And I had a
mhm,
slide on that later on that was kind of trying to reflect a bit on where is the real value in this technology already and what is just, a toy, a nice toy to play with, but doesn't bring much value from the business perspective
uh-huh,
uh, and the quality perspective. And the MCP servers currently are pretty powerful for me for exploratory testing or exploratory scenarios, where you want to, and so probably the use case with the Docker using it for setting up, checking test environment, etc., was probably closer to what I would actually use in some
uh-huh,
environment
uh-huh,
these days, because you can easily check, manually yourself. You are moving, in steps like exploring something, and if something doesn't feel right, you can quickly check. It's
mhm,
not so good for like big unattended things, like was the second example. But when I would talk about, fast prototyping or exploratory testing using these, uh, it would be, I wanted to play with the idea, okay, one, I can of course let the agent generate the code itself, like robot framework code, Python code, something that does the
mhm,
scenario. But my experience with it, I mean, wasn't very good so far.
mhm,
Um, I think I wanted to see, okay, I need probably a middle ground where it's more efficient for the agent to, to generate, or I can double check, and it's a transparent layer that both we
mhm,
can both work with and see into, and at the same time it's executable, which is why I
mhm,
tried that YAML approach with, in natural language, because the idea was, okay, I would then have another agent where I give it the specification of the API, and it will pre-generate me test cases for this endpoint in this YAML format that we use, and see if that actually, is more efficient. Again, I definitely wouldn't use it now in a pipeline for a nightly test run, because
uh-huh,
definitely I would see a lot of false positives. Uh, Just
Uh-huh.
the tooling is not that far yet. But for exploratory scenarios where I need to do a lot of something, but I'm actually there and guiding the process, this brings a lot of value.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm just thinking about some more use cases. You use it for the testing, like executing some calls, API calls. You use it also for the creating the Dockers. But what about using it also for test creation? Like we have Swagger files or some OpenAI definitions, or maybe even like documentation itself. So did you try that?
No, not yet. But that's something that I definitely want to try. But that's what I just explained a while ago. That's a moment ago, where that's why I wanted to have first that the middle ground, in which I will
Uh-huh.
say, okay, I want to express the test cases like this, and then play with it. Okay, so here's Swagger specification or GraphQL specification, and now have an agent that actually based on this, so similar as what you have in Wopee,
Mhm.
where you have, and I like that approach because the naive approach is that you just open your Copilot and you say test me this, and then you
Uh-huh.
expect it to do all those layers in a one big
Uh-huh.
black box, and what you end up with is a lot of something that you have no idea what it's doing, and whether you are getting false positives or real
Yeah.
results. Whereas the approach that you also have in Wopee is that you actually separate the process into multiple transparent layers,
Uh-huh.
where it's the agent that generates the input for the next agent who processes it, but you have also human
Yeah.
access to the transparent layer, where you can review, revise, do some changes to make sure that okay, we can agree on this, and before we move on to the next level, and you get this way you get much more consistent results and much better control over the whole process, and also it's much more efficient to finding out in a big one big black box that you don't have access to.
Yeah, and that's something what we also now working on and discussing how that could be useful or efficient. That bring the relevant context in each and every step, because that's something what for the test case creation would help. It's not only about the Swagger file, but maybe we have some more relevant company very specific data, and if you could bring these into the context, then you might get interesting results or higher quality results. And this is I have like last topic, and that's idea I want to discuss with you. And that's when I see all these moves on the market, I feel like there are certain activities or triggers in the entire IT process where we as a testers need to react. And if I would super simplify, there are two. One is bug fix or bug creation and then fixing it. And the second one is some feature or change request or whatever we call it. So if I have these two events well mapped and documented and I understand how it works, so my idea is that maybe we could build, using these tools you demo today, the entire process, some set of chats, agents, MCPs, everything, which will just say this is the ID of the change or this is the ID of the bug fix, and then everything could be automatically set up in a way that it will be deployed and tested automatically, including the the the, the, the code implementation. How far do you think we are from this kind of approach? Is it even possible to build? Because I feel like we are very close to that. If I don't build we are building the challenge on Wopee side is that we are building the generic tool. But if you know specific, if you have the specific rules, processes, and everything set up in certain organization, I think with these technologies we are very close to do it. Maybe 80% of that tasks already now. What's your opinion on that?
I think we are very close from the perspective of having the infrastructure, having the tools, having a lot of people looking at this and tinkering with it and making it better. Uh, and that is very encouraging. And can see the excitement flowing from San Francisco as you are, attending the events and meeting with different
Yeah.
people, etc. It's really contagious. On the other hand, as testers, we know that there's always humans involved in this, and not always from the positive perspective, and especially with agents and these workflows, there are already, even I can see it popping up around me in different projects, like different autonomous solutions, like end-to-end testing orchestrator with different agents working together, and you will just give
Hmm.
it a Jira issue, and then based on the issue, it will generate specification, what needs to be done and what not. As a tester who worked with this thing for a long time, I know that oftentimes there is garbage in those Jira user stories and tickets and merge requests and whatnot, and you can have best system on the market. If you put garbage in, you get garbage out most of
Yeah.
the time. So there is still a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of the guesswork that the tester needs to do, a lot of communication with
Hmm.
the other disciplines, because it's just humans working on it. So, but one thing that probably makes me really excited, I think we are now at a stage where there are now compelling reasons to have, for example, much better documentation in our projects. Because with the onset of agile processes, one thing that I feel was hard a bit is proper documentation. But
Hmm.
now, since we have what I call executable documentation and specification, it's actually useful information that you can have your MCP servers acting upon and doing something useful for you. You no longer have to write, let's say, your README documentation and stuff, because if you have good documentation that you create on the go, then a lot of the stuff just go much faster. So I hope we will see much better documentation and specification in the projects, because I also believe that the models will get better and the tooling will get even better over time. And but they need to have good information to work based on. If they don't have it, then we will get still, I mean, the results so. And
The
so what
documentation.
go ahead.
I have some experience with the documentation, and I feel like it's super helpful to use these tools. But if you like leave it running autonomously, it generates so much fluff and like not relevant information, or adding something which is not even from the context but from the like a generic knowledge of the LLM model, that it accelerates the creation of the documentation, but the quality need to be still monitored these days. I was actually updating our documentation yesterday, and what I've got from Cursor, it was really horrible. It was garbage. I need to remove everything and rewrite it. But if you have something written, it can nicely shape that content, but it won't.
Yeah,
At
but
least my experience from
you
yesterday,
need
it
to have
didn't
good
have.
examples and probably more specific context. That was at least my experience, and maybe have few curated examples that you can point to. Then you get much better results than what you would get just with zero shot example.
Yeah, that's
And I
my
feel
case.
especially documentation, this space where you definitely need multiple shot
Yeah.
kind of prompts to get some good results.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I kind of avoided your original question, so I didn't really
Yeah, yeah,
answer.
I know. We drifted a bit, but that's also answer. Okay, I think that's it for today. I don't know whether you have some more slides. You mentioned some slides, and I think I'm happy now. So if you want, we can add some more. But uh, I don't know
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
your plan.
It really depends. I expected to make shorter demo. Then I don't know how many people are here who would want to see the technical details around how it's structured and built and deployed the MCP server. But that might be even for another session, a short session, just to
Okay,
show if there was interest. So I
I would.
would probably try to push it in right now. The slides are there. I am available, so if there will be enough interest, I can, we can make another short recording and just go over as a follow-up and go over the technical slides. If you will find out, okay, demo was probably the most interesting part, and people already know how to build these things, and it was interesting use cases, then we can just leave it with the demo and the
Okay.
discussion. I'm fine with that.
I wouldn't continue. I would stop here because it was, at least for me, pretty heavy these days. It was super interesting, but these days we are used to Instagrams. Like you have 5 seconds and then you just go to the another idea. So sitting in front of YouTube for 90 minutes, it's
Mhm.
pretty challenging. So I would stop here. And we can discuss later whether we will share the slides or we will have some follow-up session because I really like the ideas and I really enjoy the entire session, but it might be a bit too long for the attendees. So thank you very much for all of you who were with us until here. Give us like, comment, whatever, follow. I don't know what the other buttons around, and we will come with more such a brilliant ideas like Uri delivered today in next weeks. There is one more session already scheduled about MCP, I think for November, but I'm also discussing some other ideas with some brilliant guys out there. So there will be more content coming soon. And if you have some idea or some you would like to see something similar in different areas, let me know and I will try to find some interesting people for that. So thank you very much, Yuri, joining me today. As I said, I really enjoy the demo and then also the intro and the discussion. So hopefully that there were some more people enjoying it with us. And see you next time. Ciao.
Next time, ciao.